You want to say anything to anybody?
Hello.
There we go. I think we got it this time.
We got something.
Yep. That's the thing with technology. If it's not working, then hit delete and try again.
David.
Darryl, what would we do without Martha?
Hey. Yeah, I don't even want to ask the question because there's no answer.
Yeah. Yeah. So how have you been? I didn't look up. It's been over a year, I think, since we've
Yeah.
spoken.
Yeah. Hey, listen, David, a lot has happened
With you or with the world?
with the world.
Yeah. Well,
1 year ago, we could not have imagined what is happening now.
it's bananas, isn't it?
It's bananas. We could not have imagined it. If somebody had told us that, or they made a movie about it, we wouldn't have believed it. We thought, oh, that's a movie. No, real time, 24/7.
Yeah. It's a real life clown show, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're in it. We're watching it, and we're in it. You know, it was. I don't know if I told you this, but I gave a talk in Munich, and it might have been in 2009. It was Austrian economics, and I led it off by saying, watching a slow-moving train wreck is fascinating, even if you're on the train. And that's what this is. I could not have imagined what's happening today is happening because that's in the particular. In the general, it all makes sense to me. I knew it was going to fall apart. I mean, I just knew it. I knew we were heading towards a disassembling of our basic institutions and the world as we know it, as we know it. And that's going to be, it was just baked in the cake. But being here real time, 24/7, is quite an experience. It's sort of like, you read all these books about sex when you're 11, 12, and 13. It ain't nothing like what you've read. I mean,
Well,
what you've read may have described it exactly, and you may have experienced all those things, but the actuality of it is different than anything that could have prepared you for it.
what's different this time, Darryl, is the speed with which things are moving.
Yes, it's accelerating. I mean, it's sort of like we see time linearly, like from point A to point B, but I was thinking about it. I said it's also like a funnel. As it's moving in, all those pieces are getting closer together. It's getting more compacted, and there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty going on. I mean, it's just everything's up in the air. And Ilya Prigogine, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He won the Nobel Prize. He was a physicist, and he was really brilliant. And he said that when complex systems become unstable, they are either going to collapse, or in that state of instability, there's a chance that it may radically reorganize itself and go far higher than it would have done otherwise. That's what Prigogine said about change. And when we see what's going on today, we mainly see it as the falling away of everything that we know. I mean, we just see it collapsing. I mean, the rule of law. I mean, it's insane what's happening. You've got a president who goes in there and says, we've got a border problem with Canada. What? We've got a border problem with Canada? What? All right. And that's just one of them. So it's like being in a bus and the bus driver has gone nuts. And a whole bunch of the population wanted him to drive the bus. Now, a bunch of them just said, we need a new bus driver. We're not going in the right direction. And this guy, I'll take a chance. Well, irrespective of the motive, he's in the driver's seat right now. And it's all bets are off. I mean, truly, all bets are off. Every morning you get up and you see something and you go, wow, I don't believe it. But you do, David, because of what's gone on before. Last year, we couldn't have imagined a reality like this with this much chaos. And, you know, one of the interesting things about economics is that I've always said that the credit and debt economies, which is based on fiat money issued by a central bank, are inherently unstable. And they're capable of producing great growth when they're beginning. But as they mature, because fiat money from a central bank throws off debt, which constantly compounds, you get far more debt ultimately than you have credit. And the debt becomes the problem. Now, everybody looks at the front end of the beast and go, oh man, credit, credit, credit. Cheaper money, cheaper money, cheaper money. But they don't realize there's a cost to that availability of cheap money. Because once it's issued as form of money, the debt starts multiplying and compounding. All right? We have debt that was issued a couple of years ago at 2% on adjustable rate mortgages. All right? Today, that same adjustable rate mortgage that was issued cheaply at 2% is now charging the borrower 6% or 5.5%. That's a whole big difference. That's a lot of difference. And the only thing that happens is that the interest rate changed. Well, that's what it is. When we switched from fiat money to fiat money based on interest rates, we went from a supply and demand economy to basically an economy controlled by the bankers to benefit themselves and those who borrow from them, who have access to the credit. All right? Now, this is what we've gotten. It's now become highly unstable. These systems are always unstable. All right? And I've always said central banking is a Ponzi scheme because it was set in motion. It's not natural. It was set in motion by private bankers and government to do what they wanted to do for themselves.
Yeah.
And
put a thumb on the scale. Yeah.
Yeah. And as long as we were happy, we would just keep going. As long as we can get from A to B and raise kids and have family and have stresses, we were happy. But it's gone to the point where a lot of people are unhappy.
The American dream.
It's what?
The American dream.
Oh, yeah, it's gone. In a generation. It's disappeared. It's disappeared. All right? And it's not coming back. Now, what I want to say is that this is a part of history. All right? I mean, David, you know, your father grew up in my father, your father, my father, came of age in a totally different world. They probably went through the Depression, World War II, which was hell. They came out of that scarred, but then they started from zero again, basically, and went up, just like Warren Buffett. Good times, good times, good times. All right? Those times are over because we've reached the time where we're now at the tilting point. All right? And what Trump is doing, he's destabilizing an already unstable system. All right? Everybody in their gut felt something's wrong. And this is where the Democrats try to tell them, oh, we're all right because they were the incumbents and saying, you know, we got employment, stuff like that. Well, that may be true for some people. But for a whole lot of people, their backs are against the wall. And they go, we got to change something. Well, they elected somebody who did change something. But what he did was he made the rich richer and the poor poorer. That's what's happened.
I don't think Trump is following the agenda that he promised his voters at all.
Of course not. Why? Because, listen, to get elected, you got to tell people what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And the more desperate they are to hear it, the more they're going to believe you.
Yeah. And what are you going to do, right?
Well,
what are you going to do?
Yeah. All right. Now, because he's there. All right? He's there and he's going at it with a vengeance. Every day, there's something new. I mean, firing a Fed governor. Last week, he was going to try and kick out Powell. Now, I've always said central banks are at the core of our monetary problems. Granted, whoever's there is charged with keeping that little Ponzi scheme going.
Mm-hmm.
But David, the truth is, as long as that Ponzi scheme is functioning, you and I are sort of all right. All right? The rich are getting richer all the time. Wage earners, pensioners, they're at the bottom. They're getting poor all the time. All right?
Yeah, it's
a system.
It's in your face. It's in your face now. It's like,
okay,
what are you going to do about it? Nothing.
Okay. Now, what they're going to do, the boys up at the top now, are just going to stuff their pockets more.
They are.
That's all because that's what they've done. I mean, they were elected by the people who had the least, who believed that by electing them, they're going to get their chance at the wheel. They're going to lose Medicaid. They're going to lose medical coverage. All right, in the next year. Those people who go to the hospital today, most of them, because they've got coverage, are not going to be able to do that next year.
Yeah, there's going to be people dying
they're
in
going to be dying
streets,
in the street. Yeah. Rents, they've broken the real estate market. It's broken. Yeah. People aren't selling. People can't buy. It's off the edge.
And you can't trust any of the numbers out there, Darryl. None of the numbers. Of course not.
Well, listen, they're lying. I got to say this about democracy. I wrote this crazy little piece called "Democracy in the Madhouse." All right, and I made up a story, David, and I said, democracy. People think it happened first in Switzerland with city-states and small villages which it did, but I said its genesis was far earlier. Democracy first appeared in a place called Muktabar, an outpatient clinic high in the Himalayas. All right. Now I made that up. All right. And when I said these people, they were crazy, and all their villagers shoved them over to this little valley so they get rid of them. And it was basically an outpatient clinic full of crazy people. And the worst among them, because they were crazy, took advantage of everybody else. It made life hell for all the other people there. It was like tyranny at its worst. So finally, they couldn't they had enough of tyranny. The people lived there, crazy people, and they went up and they overthrew the people, the tyrants who were running them. All right. And I said, this is where democracy first appeared. They voted on who was going to replace them. And at first they were all excited because it seemed to work so well. But eventually it got bad again. And I said, why? Because when crazy people vote, crazy things happen. Now, the truth of the matter is this. We did this by ourselves, David. The Mexicans didn't do it to us. The Chinese didn't do it to us. The French didn't do it to us. The Canadians did it to us. We did it to ourselves. Now, what he played upon were all this victim attitude of America. And I want to say this is why the victim attitude worked here. Because the rest of the world is as much trouble as we are. Okay? I mean, no one's doing well. Everyone's got their back to the walls. All right? Everyone is just scrambling, just hoping this thing's not going to fall apart on them. But the difference between America and the rest of the world is the rest of the world, for the most part, most of it, is just struggling to go higher. They came from a basic, like Africa, Asia, they came from a low point. All right? I mean, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the Chinese were riding bicycles on the streets. Okay? They're in trouble now. They've got debt. They got all the problems that we do. They got a housing bubble that popped on them. All right? Their kids can't find jobs, just like the college graduates here can't find jobs. But the difference is their world, it's better than the world that they remember, that they grew up in as kids. All right? It came up. Our world, David, here in the U.S., it's worse. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what happens when it gets worse? So we're in a unique position, except with England. England has gotten worse too. Oh, yeah. All right? Because they started higher than we did. They started the Ponzi scheme. All right? Those guys sitting there driving Jaguars and, the rich ones, they had it way before we did. All right? They started this game. So England and the U.S. are sort of the same. We see ourselves, oh, man, somebody It's getting worse. And that leads you to a victim mentality. Who's to blame for it getting worse? Now, I want to take two of the issues that people in the United States have fallen for because they don't understand it, and it's easy to believe this shit. All right, immigrants. All right, the Mexicans are taking our jobs. David, when was the last time that a Mexican took the job that you wanted? When was the last time a guy came over and who barely could speak English took the job that you were looking for? Can't remember it. I don't think you were out there looking to pick strawberries,
right,
or to roof a house in the middle of summer. No, you weren't doing that. I don't know what you were doing, but you weren't doing that. Those are the jobs that they came and took. Now, why did they leave their countries to come to America? All right, a place where they didn't speak the language, a place where they had to start totally at the bottom. Let me tell you, this is when the wave of immigrants started coming out of Mexican countrysides. In 1992, the U.S. signed a free trade act with Mexico, NAFTA. All right? And what we got was access to the Mexican economy, which is what we wanted. But it was quid pro quo. We had to let them in too. We had a sort of balance. You don't grab one to do the other. And what we got for that, David, Mexico had tariffs. Now, tariffs are usually put in place by countries to protect domestic industries. All right? That's what they are. And in fact, when the United States was coming up and England was the established power, the whole English press was yelling and screaming about unfair American competition. Mm-hmm. Okay? And they put tariffs up against American goods because we could do it cheaper than them, and that's it. Mm-hmm. All right? So what happened is that when the tariffs went down between our countries, all of a sudden, cheap American corn flooded into Mexico. Why was our corn so cheap? Two reasons. One, we're highly mechanized, okay? Economies of scale. But the big thing was this, David. It goes back to money. When we pulled the plug on gold in the US dollar, all of a sudden, we were naked. Okay? If you go back and look at balance of trade, we were at zero, 1972. We were even. Our balance of trade, which everybody thinks, look, they're taking advantage of it, started in 1973, 74, 75, and went up like a rocket. Like a rocket. Ever since then, when we pulled gold out of the dollar, that's when the trade imbalance started happening and all the goods from overseas started coming here. Why? Because we could give countries paper dollars and not give them gold when they asked for it in return. We stiffed them. And they had to take it because we had set up Bretton Woods to advantage us as the issuer of the world's reserve currency because we had all the gold. After we spent all the gold on the military buildup, all right, and on sending our corporations overseas in factories, we spent all our gold. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't back the dollar anymore. So we went off the gold standard, and other countries, they had no alternative. But as long as they could use our dollars and buy things, they were happy. They weren't real happy, but at least it didn't fall apart. In other words, we were giving them IOU money. Before, we were giving them money that they'd exchange for gold if there was a trade imbalance. That's why we didn't have any imbalances. But once we could get the rest of the world to take our paper money as if it were gold, then we went to town. So it isn't like other countries are taking advantage of us. It's like we started taking advantage of them.
Absolutely, because we control the printer.
We control the printer. Our paper dollar was better than the paper Japanese yen. Our paper dollar was better than the Chinese paper yuan. Our paper dollar was better than the English pound because it had that provenance. Good as gold. That's what they call the US dollar. So that's what happened there. That's the reason why, one, we have huge trade imbalances and we have illegal immigrants. All right. Now, if you ask an American about illegal immigrants, they'll go on and on and on. Oh, they're taking advantage of all this stuff. If you ask them about the imbalance of trade, oh, they're taking advantage of us. Hey, it's not true. But they were told that. Why? Because it worked. Because people were desperate, people were angry, and people didn't know. All right. And when you're in that state, and when you're angry, and you vote, you're not going to make good choices. That's just how it is. You don't make good choices.
I'm waiting for the guillotines.
Yeah. Well, in 2020, 2024, we did the same thing in the United States that the UK did with Brexit. All right. The UK, they were told the same thing. The British had been around a lot longer than us. All right. They had these little countryside things, and they had thousands of years of this little English fairy tale land, and they were richer and shit because they had the Ponzi scheme of credit-based money. They ruled the world. They were the Crips in the street gang of the world. They ran the world. They had the Navy to blow you out of the water if you didn't want to take their money, and they did it. All right. So when all of a sudden immigrants started coming in to take those jobs that the English would no longer do, and their immigrants came from where? The places that England had colonized. All right? Colonized. Went in there with their guns, pointed them at people and said, work for me, motherfucker, and take my money like it's real. That's what he did.
Slave class.
Slave classes. So they let them into England because they wanted to keep their influence. They were an empire. So that's what they did. So all these guys who work at factories, seeing somebody coming in smelling like curry, talking weird, ain't English like I know. What's wrong with you? Man, they get mad because they're getting poor. They're getting poorer because they started from the top like we did. And when you start from the top and you start getting poor, you blame someone else. Because why? You're doing everything you did before, except it's getting worse. You're doing everything. You're trying, to make a living. It's getting worse. And the rich boys who run the thing point the fingers at the other people because they don't want you to know it's them. They don't want you to know who's benefiting at your expense, as they always have. They point the finger and we chase the dog, and that's what's done.
And they still control all the information. They still control the information.
Absolutely. Now, there's hope. David, I'm a man of hope. All right?
I know.
I want to bring you my message of hope. All right? Now, Bucky Full. David, did you hear that talk I gave at the temple?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah,
all right.
Fantastic. Yeah, I sent you back the audio clip so you could have it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks.
I'm going to insert that right now so people can listen to it before your comments.
Today, what? Yesterday, the pyramids, the Sphinx, statues of Ramses II, including the one lying down in Saqqara. There is much power in these areas of great monoliths. Even thousands of years later, the power can be felt. Can you imagine the transformation of your planet when the power within the people is realized? This power is what you refer to as the divine discontent. You are right. The divinity within mankind is stirring. It is like a volcano. It will erupt. It is erupting now. Tremendous changes will come about. Some you will call good. Much you will call bad. It is up to the people. Those who are tolerant of their fellow human beings, what you call love, are capable of great accomplishment. Those who are afraid of this power and fearful of others will create destruction. That it is an individual choice. Everything is individual choice. We encourage you to accept the responsibility for the choices you have made. The project you are attempting can and will be done. Accept the power that is within you. We are here. We work with and through you. Stand tall like a pyramid. Do not be swayed by others. Fulfill your destiny. It is also the destiny of others. Allow the work to go forth. We bless you. I am Zozar. A better world is coming, but the transition is going to be very, very difficult. But I want to read something that I have. I read it because it helps me. It may help you. When the familiar disappears, be curious. Expect miracles. By entering a state of curiosity, you engage an aspect of your mind that is free to move unfettered by expectation. It becomes very much like the mind of a child. And it is this innocence, which is not the same as childishness, that allows you to enter a vibratory state of consciousness, which greatly benefits you. By holding the expectation of miracles, you release the power of creation within you. And to the extent that you accomplish this, you will find increasing incidences of serendipity, coincidences of benefit, and unexpected treasures, whether they be physical in nature or mental and emotional. This combination of curiosity about what to happen next, joined with an expectation of miracles, will move you rapidly from the void point to a new life, a new creation, regardless of what might be happening to those around you. 6 months ago, these words came to me, 2025. The weather's going crazy. People are crazy too. Something's going on. What we gonna do? Fears come out of hiding. Anger's just behind. People with guns everywhere. The president's lost his mind. Time to trust. Time to know. Something's going on. It's time to grow. Wall Street's buying up houses. People living on loans. The rich are getting richer. The poor are getting boned. Cities filled with homeless, hoping drugs will kill the pain. No roof, no food, no bed. Greed's gone insane. Time to trust. Time to know. Something's going on. It's time to grow. Insurance is just gambling. Roll the dice, hope and pray. Maybe tomorrow or the next day will be better. Just can't say. The earth is getting hotter and still we're burning gas. Balloon payments getting bigger. Denial can't make this last. Time to trust. Time to know. Something's going on. It's time to grow. Love is still here waiting for us to find our heart. Instead of thinking AI can replace the holy art of trusting in the future and knowing what to do, of trusting again in life and love and knowing I am you. We are eternal lights passing through temporal darkness. We cannot be harmed. We are beloved. Namaste. Okay, the clip, my talk. All right, yeah. That'll be interesting. All right, but I'm going to give some background on how I, a hippie, became known as an expert on money. All right, I had never taken the Ecorn class in college. All right, ever. Money, you know, and blah blah blah. I'm a hippie, and everybody knows hippies' attitudes about money. Right? Not real high on the scale. All right. And I was like, oh, okay. So what happens is that in 1991, I hear these words. Now I've been in prison during that time as a hippie drug dealer. And I'm meditating like it meant something. You know, I mean, my joke is saying that 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, is a whole lot different when you're walking around the track in prison than when you're sitting in a pew in church mumbling it with all these people around you. All right. There's just something about environment. All right. That causes
Valley of Death has a different meaning.
Absolutely. You're in that bomber pilot, they're shooting at you, and you're praying. Okay? You cut to the chase. I mean, you maybe have never prayed in your life before, but you're praying then. So there I was, meditating like there's no tomorrow. And I hear these words, David, 1991. These words, they came to me. And it's not the first time I heard words or heard the voice, but this is that time I'm talking about. 1991, I hear these words. In times of expansion, It is to the hare the prize goes. Quick, risk-taking, and bold, his qualities are exactly suited to the times. In times of contraction, however, the tortoise is favored. Quick only to retract his vulnerable head and neck, his is the wisest bet, when the slow and sure is preferable to the quick and easy. There comes a time, however, when neither the hare nor the tortoise is the victor. This is the time of the vulture. And the vulture feeds neither upon the stored up wealth of the bear or the pastures of the bull, which lie buried deep beneath the rubble of economic collapse. The vulture feeds upon the blind denial and ignorance of the ostrich. The time of the vulture is at hand. Now, David, I hear those words, and I go, where do they come from? Because I told you, I've heard the voice before. But still, that spooked me. I mean, why me? But I heard him. So I write him down. And then I get out of prison. And for some reason, I start studying economics. I mean, I told Martha, I said, why? I'm a hippie. What am I doing? Reading all this stuff about money and the Great Depression and gold, stuff like that. But I really believe I'm led. I really do.
Well, God chooses the most unlikely people to share his messages.
Well, he went out on the edge when he picked me. I think he was trying to get something I'm sitting next to. So what happens is, I'm on the internet trying to figure this stuff out. And I remember, I knew gold was core to this money thing. So this is late 1990s, and I find the gold site called Gold Eagle. All right. It was one of the early gold specific sites where people wrote about gold and stuff like that. So I said, okay, I'm going to read all these articles about gold. So I start reading them, and I realized this is a bunch of shit. I mean, some of them were good, some of them were bad, most of them didn't matter, but there was too many articles for me to waste my time trying to figure out which one was good or bad.
Yeah.
So I'm going through these names, trying to just guess at what to pick up, and I run across a name that I blew off. I went past it. Why? It was a foreign name. And it was on a subject that didn't make any sense to me. It was the title of it. But something in me pulled me back. And I clicked on the name and the article. And it was from a guy named Professor Antal Fekete. Now, if your listeners want to find something that's extraordinary, go to www.professorfekete.com. And it's Fekete. All right. Now, that's why I blew up past his name. Antal Fekete, I had never heard it before. And the title of his article just didn't make sense to me. But I read the article, David, and he's talking about what happens if there's an economic crisis. And he said what's going to happen is the central bank, which issues the credit money, is going to drop the interest rates quickly to try and re-stimulate the economy. He said, though, that money is not going to go into the economy because the intermediary of credit in credit-based economies are banks. And banks are not going to make loans when they not sure being paid back. In the best of times, bankers are assholes, unless they're trying to trap you, which they did during the subprime interest rates. And they'd give a loan to somebody who had a job at Circle K, and they knew they weren't going to pay him back. But they were given the okay to do so. But he said what happens is the banks are going to take that cheap credit and they're going to buy IOUs, debt, that pay a higher interest than what they're paying to get that credit from the Fed. And they're going to arbitrage the difference between the credit, the interest rates they're paying, and the interest rates they're getting on the bond or the IOU. That's where the money's going to go. And I went, wow.
Risk-free.
Yeah. I mean, it made sense to me. And David, I had never heard anybody say that before. So I remember I Googled Antal. I said a little thing to him. I just read a short little comment about what he had written. And this is not like the late 1990s. And Antal writes back and he said, one sentence. What is your interest in these matters? David, I'm a hippie who's been to prison, who's just now becoming interested in money. So I didn't answer him. I mean, I couldn't have given him any answer to make him be interested in me. All right? That's around 1999. 6 years later, my friend Marshall from law school puts together a very interesting group of people called the Positive Deviant Network. And I mean, very high powered. These were what Marshall called out of the box, high achieving people. All right. And Martha and I were asked to join. So there was this guy there named John Body. And I didn't know him, but Marshall said he was big in Wall Street. All right. He was a finance guy. And John was younger than I was. He was probably in his mid 30s at that time. But I had no idea how big and important he was in the industry. I later on, I found out that John had graduated from Haverford College in 92 and was directly hired by Wall Street trading bank, Kidder Peabody, directly, and made a vice president. All right. I mean, this is unusual. This is how valued he was, how smart he was. By the end of the 1990s, John is in London running the investment desk for Deutsche Bank, trading in London and New York, trading in government debt. All right? He's not even 30. And this kid is doing that. All right? And eventually, he's running a proprietary trading hedge fund for Credit Lyonnais. Credit Lyonnais, for Credit Lyonnais. And or Commerce Exterior, a French bank, major French bank. And he put together a team, and his returns were so outstanding that Credit Magazine put John Body in their Hall of Fame for bond traders. And he was just in his early 30s when they did that. Now, I had no idea about this guy's provenance, which is extraordinary. But Marshall introduced us. I'm Marshall's old friend from law school. And he points to me and he tells John, he said, this guy is really worried about the economy. And he says, John is too. And I thought, he ain't worried like I'm worried. I had read those words 14 years before and studied it. And I just thought we were headed for the collapse of collapse. I mean, we were headed for a rendering that was going to make the Great Depression look like a slight pullback. All right? So, but I knew John's provenance, his background was big. And I couldn't just say, yeah, we're in trouble. So I decided to write a paper and for my case of why I thought it was so bad. That paper, David, turned over the next year, turned to a 148-page paper. All right? And I posted it on the web, called it Time of the Vulture. And, we had a website, survivethecrisis.com. And we put the book out as a PDF for $79.99. $99.99 for a paper copy, and $129 with an investment margin. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, especially back then.
And yeah, but I put a money back guarantee on it. If you don't like it, my brother I was going to sell it in 1995, and I sent it to this marketing guy, and he goes, if you are as good as you think you are, this thing you should charge hundreds for, because you're going to save people thousands. All right? So that's why we raised our prices. Well, over the next 2 years, what I did is that I presented the paper on March 1st, 2007. And I sent a copy to Professor Fekete. All right? And he read it. This is Professor Fekete, the Austrian economist. He was brilliant. I once told Antal, I said, you know, Antal, I don't agree with you on everything, but I'm not the person to quibble with you. You know, he was really smart. He had read he'd read it all. He'd done it. He was brilliant. You know, I'm just an observer, passerby. So, but he read what I wrote and he liked it, and he invited me to Hungary to give a talk at his gold standard university. That's how much he liked me. He thought I had merit in what I was saying. I mean, I had no other credentials, and Antal picked me out. Now, the thing is, I came into Antal because of that feeling when I went past it that maybe I should look at this guy, and I did. That what I want to say, David, is I think that's how life is. It's not as open as we think it is. Life is very different than what we think it is, and I think all of us are different than who we think we are. All right, we have all these set ideas about not only who we are, but who other people are, and what the world is, and why it's here, and why we're here. I think basically we're dead wrong. All right.
Well, it's like what you said in your sermon.
You're right.
Serendipity.
Yeah. So let me tell you about how I gave that talk.
Yeah.
Right now, before I gave that talk, I had sent you a video, interview I had done with Carrie Lutz. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And on August 13th, which is a couple, 2.5 weeks ago, Carrie had asked me before then, early August, if I would do an interview with him. And I said, sure. So Carrie interviews me on a Monday, on the 11th, August, and he posts it on the 13th. All right. Well, in 5 days, it went over 100,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
That had never happened with Carrie before. Carrie's interviewed me before over the years. And I do 1,000 or 2,000. You never know. It's like blah, 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 time, space, subject, interest. This one took off. Over 100,000 views. Right now, it's probably, I think it's a couple weeks later, it's like 122,000. That's a lot for an interview.
So
but anyway,
people are finally ready to listen, I guess.
I think so. I think it's time. It's time, because I've been saying the same stuff over and over and over. In fact, that's why I quit saying stuff. That's why I quit writing. I reached my conclusions about the economy in 2006, 2007, and I expected the whole thing to crash when the crises happened. And the crises began in 2008 in September, but it hasn't crashed. It started to go downhill so fast. They did something. The boys in control did something they'd never done before. What they did was as I said in my interview with Carrie, it's sort of like the toilet. The toilet was no longer going to work. All right. And jiggling the handle didn't work. Putting water in the thing didn't work. So they put a hose in the tank. All right. That's called QE. They put a hose directly in the tank to continually add liquidity to it to keep it functioning. And like I said in the interview with Carrie that went viral, the plumbers, central banks, know this is not good for the toilet. The pressure is not built to take the pressure. It's not meant to operate that way. And it's not operating on its own. It's on like life support. I've said since 2009, all economies around the world have been on life support, which is money put in artificially by central banks to keep us functioning.
Yeah.
They function. We're barely functioning. Now, what happened is when COVID came along in 2020, that not only screwed things up, that blew their game out of the water. And what they did then, they had to put a fire hose in it. All right. Now, in 2020, the house you were looking at for maybe $300,000, 2 years later, it was $500,000. Same house.
But I'm a genius because I held, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you were the fool because you didn't buy it when you was at 300.
Right.
All right. And the guy who had it go, man, I 500,000. Well, today he can't sell his house for 500. All right. But he knows it was worth 4 months ago. He could have. So he's not going to drop his price.
No.
All right. It distorted the economy so much that the difference between the haves and the have-nots went ballistics. Okay. I mean, this morning I read that even those with prime credit ratings on their interest payments are falling behind. That's how it is right now. That's how dicey.
And now you have pay to play, Affirm, and all these other things.
Pay to play to buy eggs at the store.
Yeah,
because they have no other recourse. You either feed the kids or you go on the street. Well, I got to get to the good news. It is terrible. All right, but so what happens is that I give this talk. It goes sort of viral, and the next week I'm scheduled to give a talk at the Temple of Universality. I'm a minister there. I'm a spiritualist minister. Okay, and I already knew the topic I was going to give. When they asked me. But then I thought, no, I'm not going to give that talk. I'm going to say something else. Now, Carrie Lutz is the one who interviewed me on the 13th on the interview of Financial Survival Network that went viral. All right. And 11 years ago, Carrie asked me to speak at a symposium that he and a friend were giving in Las Vegas. All right. And, so I went to Las Vegas and I gave a talk there. All right. And I remember it was really interesting. They had around 20 speakers. They had a whole lot of people there. And before when it started, I don't know if you know who Turd Ferguson is.
Sure do.
Okay. Turd's big gold guy on Zero Hedge. Okay. And Turd gets up and tells a story. He said, his name is not Turd Ferguson. But he started writing his
name's Craig.
Yeah, okay. It's Craig. Okay. Yeah. He said, so he started calling himself Turd, and he says, now my mother calls me that. All right. Well, so what happens is he gets up, the first guy, and he goes, he's got a Turd t-shirt, Turd Ferguson t-shirt, as a prize for this contest he's going to have. We're all sitting in this room. And he goes, what year did the IMF sell 1,500,000 ounces of gold? All right. Bam. Cold question. And people raise their hands and they're just taking pot shots. They're all over the place. Everybody's got an opinion. Should the Warriors have traded for Jimmy Butler or not? All right. Everybody's got an opinion. All right. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, it's either 75 or 76. I wasn't sure, but I knew exactly what he was talking about. All right. So I raised my hand and he calls on me and I took a pot shot and I think I said 75. I don't still remember which one it was, but I was right. I was right. And I won the t-shirt. So I think in a way that everybody in that room already knew who I was. All right. I've been writing for years. I had a reputation in that world for parsing the economic crisis. Okay. So I give my talk. And after I give my talk, I'm leaning against the wall, listening to the next speaker. And some guy comes up behind me, David, and he says, you know things you're not telling us. And I want to know why. Now that was spooky. That's as spooky as hearing the words about the time of the vulture. All right? Woo! Because it was true. I did see the world differently than I was telling people how it was. But I didn't, and I wasn't saying it because I thought it was going to be too much for them to hear. And they didn't want to hear it. Those people there only wanted to hear why the fiat system was going to collapse and why gold and silver were going to be far more valuable after the collapse than they are today. That's right. All they wanted to hear.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah, there was and I knew it, so I didn't say it. All right, and besides, and so what happens is, 2 years ago, I have we know this psychic. We know several psychics, okay, mediums, and they're extraordinary. I mean, they really. In fact, before I became known for my money stuff, I gave my talk at the Positive Giving Network in 2007. All right. And then I started writing articles. And after that, I was all over the web, all over the world. And by 2011, I remember I Googled my name once, and I had 61 pages of references on Google. That's a lot of pages, David.
Yeah.
That's a lot. 61. All right. And so Martha and I went to see this medium, this psychic, and 2005. And I was just some pissed off old hippie. All right. I had fought the law and the law won. All right. The world wasn't the way I wanted it to be, and we weren't getting along. And so I sit down with this psychic, and he closes his eyes and he says, "You're a teacher." I go, "No." He goes, "You teach?" I go, "No." And then he goes, "Well, you know things that other people don't know." And I said, "Everybody thinks that. The difference is," I said, "I have no audience. I have no agreement. I have no voice." This is 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "This will soon change. People will begin seeking you out." And sure enough, a year later, I start writing my paper. 2 years later, I presented at Marshall's PDN. 3 years later, I'm speaking in Hungary on economics. 4 years later, I'm all over the web. I mean, it's like, boom, he was right. That's why I believe in psychic phenomena. That's why I believe in mediums. Now, I know there's a lot of fraud out there. There's a lot of bad advice, but that's like with every human being. I mean, just because somebody is a doctor doesn't mean he's going to give you a direct diagnosis. Just because somebody says they're a medium doesn't mean they're really plugged in the way that you want them to be. But I know something's there, and I didn't know it before, like I know it today.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. There's no doubt about it. You can call it different frequencies or whatever, but there's definitely something there.
Something there. There's something there. So what happens is that I give that talk in 2014. The guy says, "You know things that you're not telling us, and I want to know why." And I didn't say why. I didn't say anything. And then 2 years ago, I'm talking to another medium, and another high being comes into me. And this is what he says, David, in the medium. I know some extraordinary mediums. And he goes, "Usually it is you who are serving me," which means helping. It is you who help me. Today, it is I who am helping you. And his instructions were, say what you know to be true. Tell others what you know to be true. Now, that got me. All right? That was 2 years ago. And
that was 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Camp Chesterfield, Indiana, I heard this. And it took me 2 years to do what he told me to do. For one, I don't write anymore. I don't post any more articles. I just don't do it. All right. And I rarely give interviews. And I still didn't think people wanted to hear what I thought was going to happen, because I didn't think they could take it. And then last week, before I talked to the Temple of Universality, I said, "You know what? I think this is the place, and this is the time." Because the people of the Temple of Universality, they understand about spirit communication. They understand about mediums. They understand about Edgar Cayce, all this stuff like that. Whether they wanted to listen to my dire predictions or what I believed was going to happen, because I believe a far better world is going to come. And not because of us, but it's going to come. That they would at least be the place I could give the talk. So I went that morning, I gave the talk, and Martha, who introduced me on the tape, she said she talked to people later, and they said they felt uplifted by it. And I went, wow. Then it was a success. Usually people are left in the dust when I talk about this stuff. But what I believe was happened was this. I gave the predictions of economic collapse. I framed it in such a way that they believed what I said was going to happen, that they believed that a better world was coming. They believed that this collapse is necessary for the better world to come. That right now they have no power. Right now they're pressed against the wall. Right now they're the victims of a system that they did not create and does not benefit them at all. It's taking advantage of them, and they have no room left. I think what they understood was this collapse was sent by universe or God or the powers that be, the power that is, to transform life on this planet. Now, that's pretty crazy stuff. And that's why I never said that in public before last week. That's why I was really curious, because you and I, we haven't talked for a while. All right. And you, David, in my mind, are part of those people out there. You're very curious. I mean, that's the one thing that sets you, that makes you different than a whole lot of people. You're more curious than most. All right. Mm-hmm. And so you question things that other people don't question. And you, even though you carry a lot of thoughts out there about how things are, you don't really say this is the way it is until you really feel that's the way it is. Other people fly off the handle and go, this is what it is. They're doing it to me. I'm a victim. This motherfucker, you know, George Soros. Fuck that shit. I've heard that stuff for so long. Man,
the devil.
Yeah. Nancy Pelosi. You know? You. You.
Well, you know, here's the thing, Darryl, is if you truly believe in God, right?
Yeah.
If you truly believe that, and I mean, we're human beings, so it's very difficult to know 100% what's coming or what is truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you do decide that there is a God, there is an afterlife, you believe in that, then it should give you the courage to take the steps needed to make this world a better place, because we're only here temporarily. We know that. Whether it's a dirt nap or whether it leads to salvation, we know that we're not going to be here in 100 years.
No. It's hey, David, I'm 80. All right, I'm 80. Yeah, well, I was 86 months ago. All right, and so my joke about it is like, there's not a lot of wick left above the candle. All right, or if there is a lot left, there's a lot less than it was when I was 20. All right.
Yeah.
But I've learned a lot along the way. I've really had a very unique journey. Very unique.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Your
journey is amazing.
You know, it boggles my mind.
Not many people end up where you are today, having started off where you started.
Wherever that is. I mean, in last night, Martha and I saw a video on Devo, and you know that band, and you know she always liked them. And, you know, I knew who they were, and it was a fascinating.
That whip.
Yeah, you got it. What I didn't know, David, is that they were students at Kent State when those kids got shot.
Oh, I didn't know they were that old.
They were there. They were on campus. They knew two of the kids that were killed.
Wow, that was tragic.
Oh, tragic. And it informed who they were and how they saw the world. Well, 6 years before that happened, I was in law school. 5 years before that happened, I was in law school, San Francisco, Hastings Law School, and I took acid. 3 years later, as my law school class is graduating, I'm in jail for selling acid. I went from law school to running the food concessions at the Avalon Ballroom.
Yeah.
Janis Joplin, Grateful Dead, Johnny Winters, Country Joe and the Fish. I mean, those were the days. I mean, if you Google something called the Celestial Synapse, it was a concert I went to in 1969 at the Fillmore. It was free. The Grateful Dead played all night. And it was so incredible. Rolling Stone wrote an article about it, the celestial synapse. And you can find it on the web. I was there.
Wow.
I was there. Okay. 1 month later, I get busted for selling acid. 10 years later, I'm not living on Haight Street anymore, which I was in 69. I'm living on Union Street in San Francisco, very upscale street. All right. I have an import-export company, Newman and Schoon. We've got ads in Architectural Digest. All right. I have a $400,000 line of credit jam full of hand-knotted silk and wool rugs. I've got national distribution. I've met with the board of directors of McDonnell Douglas about an offset deal with China. I'm on Dianne Feinstein's China committee. And I had presidential invitations from the White House when Deng Xiaoping came to Washington, D.C. All right? 10 years. And I believe this all happened because of affirmations. Everybody's heard about it. Focus on this, you get what you want. Oh, they work, they don't work, blah, blah, blah. But when my friend Marshall from law school told me about him, we both started doing it. Marshall graduated from law school, I didn't. So in 73, we started doing affirmations. Okay? We're broke. I mean, and Marshall said, well, he's broke too. I said, Marshall, he's a lawyer. I said, you're broke in wingtip brogues. I'm broke in flip-flops, and there's a difference. All right? 3 years later, Marshall is living in a mansion on Lion Street next to Dianne Feinstein. He's got a Rolls Royce and a Corvette. I'm living in a flat on Union Street, all right? A little Carmen Gia and a whole lot of cash. All right? A whole lot of cash. Well, what happens is I'm meditating one day in Union Street, and I hear these words. The voice comes. I hear, just like the voice that said, Time of the Vulture. This is 15 years before, 1976. Yeah, 15 years before. And the voice I hear, it says, this isn't it. And I go, oh. This isn't it. And my fear, David, was, I'd been poor as a hippie 3 years before, which is poor. And if this isn't it, am I supposed to give it away, give it all back? It's like Jesus told the centurion.
Just like Bucky does.
Just like Bucky does. All right. But I wasn't there. So when I hear these words, I go, oh no. But I closed my eyes, and Marshall and I had gone to a seminar called the Knowing Seminar. And what you do there is very much like talking to God. You close your eyes. I think it is. You're talking to source. You're talking to it. When you have a question, you close your eyes, you quiet yourself. And then you ask the question of it, the silence, the void, the one, the mystery. You ask your question and you wait for an answer. You don't think of an answer. You don't go on that. You don't think of what people told you. You wait in the silence for an answer.
I'll bet you most people wouldn't even know what questions to ask.
Well, it was very clear to me because the voice said, this isn't it. All right. And I was afraid that meant I was supposed to give it all up because I only recently came into it.
Yeah. So you don't even want to ask a question.
Yeah. I was told that. So my question was simple. What is it that I want? If this isn't it, what is it? And David, this feeling of peace hit me so hard. It was like I had the image that I was on the side of a mountain and it was nighttime and you could hear the crickets going, that kind of night. And across the valley, there was a cabin and I could see the fireplace and there's a fire in it. And I knew that was my home and I wasn't in it. But it was totally all right that I wasn't in my home. I had nothing. I knew I had a home. It was there. I was totally at peace. Totally at peace. Never felt that way before. And when I opened my eyes, I went, wow, that is what I want. Now, David, I don't know if you've ever been a drug dealer. I doubt it. But it isn't a peaceful existence. All right. I mean, some people, I made the crack. They call it easy money. I call it uneasy money. All right. Uneasy. You're constantly having to arbitrage risk. If you don't take the risk, you don't get the benefit. No risk, no play, no gain. It's always at risk. So what happened is that I did not have a whole lot of peace in my life. So when I had that feeling, I thought, that's what I want. I want that peace. So I started writing down goals with peace in them. All right. So along with my regular affirmations, I had all these things about peace. So there I am saying I'm at peace. I'm in one of all the blah, 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 stuff like that. And what happens, I'm at Marshall Thurber's law office a few months later, and this couple walk in and they say, we know that you're working with affirmations, and we have a book that has affirmations in it, and we're going to use one of those affirmations today. So I sit there, I'm killing time. I'm retired, 31, I'm retired. And the affirmation, I am entitled to miracles. Oh, wow. What a thought. That makes my affirmations about having money or having here, blah, 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 seem like nothing. I am entitled to miracles. So I went up to them after they did the presentation. I said, where did this come from? And they said, well, the book just got published. And what I found out around 20 years later is that the reason why they were at Marshall's real estate class is that he was one of 4 people who gave them $5,000 to do the first printing of the Course in Miracles. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but this is when they first came out. And that's why they were there. All right. So I had never heard of the books. So he hands me this book. I open it up and I went to it. I've been doing affirmations about peace. And this is what the foreword said. This is a manual for peace. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is up to you. Free will does not mean you establish a curriculum. It merely means you choose what to take at a given time. This course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing your blocks to your awareness of love's presence. The opposite of love is fear. However, that which is all-encompassing has no opposite. This course can be summed up as follows. That which is real can never be threatened, and that which is unreal does not exist. Herein lies the peace of God. Stunning words, David. And I never forgot it. Never
Obviously,
forgot it.
yeah.
And so around 3 years later, as I now, I'm up in the hills like drug dealers live, all right? And I'm doing affirmations again, and life is good, blah, blah, blah. And I hear the voice. And the voice says, your use of thought to create your reality is an inappropriate use of this power at this time. Because at this time, much of what you learn comes through adversity. And you are using this power to keep away those situations that you need to learn from. Now, David, that was clear to me that my use of affirmations to get money, all these things I wanted, I wasn't supposed to be doing it because I was supposed to, allegedly, be learning hard lessons. And I was avoiding these hard lessons, which I didn't want to do, clearly. None of us want hard lessons, by doing affirmations. And it said, this is not right. So I thought, holy smokes. And I closed my eyes and I asked it, can I do affirmations? And it said, no. I threw the I Ching, that Chinese oracle book. I wasn't ready to give them up. Can I do affirmations? It said, no. 2 years later, this huge bust comes into my life. I get a 10-year prison sentence. And I go to prison and I meditate like there's no tomorrow. And I get there. I get to a place where people want to get to, and I got there, where I was talking to it. And then I wasn't there anymore. And then a few years later, those words come to me right before I get out of prison about the time of the vulture. So that's why I have this belief in this thing, in this, I guess I call it an ability, but it's not an ability. It's a gift. And I think you get it when you're ready or you're supposed to. And you don't before you're supposed to or you're ready. That's all there's to it. You don't get to fly before your wings start to grow. You can try and fly and you're going to fall off a cliff. All right. And I think the thing is that mankind, and this is what I said in my talk at the temple, that we have really screwed it up. We have free will. We were given free will by the Creator. And what we do with that free will is we use it to screw each other over. All right. And take it away from each other. All right. That's just what humanity's done. And so what's happening is we've now endangered the existence of the earth. I don't know, David, there's a thing called global warming going on. All right. And it's so bad that insurance companies are not even. One of the people who was the PDN, the Positive PDN Network that I gave my talk at, there was a lot of rich people in that room. And I recently found out that one of them, he lives in a state, high in the hills, and his insurance, home insurance, was $5,000 a year until this year. And today it went from $5,000 to $45,000.
Yeah, insane. What's been going on with insurance the last couple of years?
Yeah. Well, you know why they're doing it? The payouts. And you know why the payouts are huge? Natural disasters. Los Angeles.
Like Palisades.
Pacific Palisades. Napa County. There's a fire right now. All right? It is so, and they got to make their nut. They're not in there to protect your home. They're in there. The insurance companies are there to say they're going to protect your home and then make a profit in doing so. They're like politicians. All right. I mean, when you all talk about,
and all these pension funds own them. So,
oh yeah, because the returns are there. The returns are there. And you know what? The insurance companies had to say, in the 1990s, I read that the major insurance companies in Europe were convening a study group to look at the effects of global warming. Why? Because they insure against risk.
Yeah.
Floods, fires, things like that. And they knew something was going on. And they did what any insurance company would do, is study what it's going to be and what the consequences are, and if there's anything to do. And they did. Well, David, I want to tell you something. They didn't do that here. State Farm didn't do it. Fireman's Fund didn't do it. AGI didn't do it. Why? Because they couldn't get away with it. Why could they get away with Europe? Because Europe does not have an oil and gas industry. There's no fossil fuel deposits that depend on fossil fuels, which fuels climate change for their profits. So in Europe, the insurance companies were free.
What about like Norway? Doesn't Norway get everything funded from their oil companies?
Yeah, but that was later. That was after they got the North Sea oil.
Yeah,
they only found that later on. When they first started asking questions about global climate change, that was when it's its earlier stage. And in the United States, the oil and gas lobby was so big that even the insurance boys couldn't protect themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean the oil and automotive have been running this.
They put so much shit out there, David, that Americans don't believe in global warming. You ask them, oh, it's always been this way. You dumb shit. My joke is, how to get Americans concerned about global warming? Allow them to go take their goddamn AK-47s and shoot at the sun. You know, if you want to get Americans up in arms and do something about global warming, tell them to take their guns, stand out there and shoot at the sun, and they'll do it. But you tell them to stop driving their goddamn gas-guzzling cars. You tell them to cap their emissions, and they elect a president who wants to go to coal. That's where we're at. And that's why the universe is intervening. We have a belief in the 20th century, and this is as superstitious as any belief has been in the world. This is a superstition of the modern times, prevailing superstition. It's not true, but it's widely held that we're the only conscious entity here, that we're the most conscious being in the universe. And the rest of the universe is sort of material at our pleasure. The truth is, David, the universe is alive.
Right. Well, that's called ignorance, Darryl.
Oh, it is called ignorance, but everybody is ignorant. It's a superstition. And because we believe we're top dog and we could do anything to it, we have about destroyed it. Well, what I believe, and this is what I said in my talk at the temple, and Bucky said it in 1981, that the universe is moving and is going to bring down a crisis that's unprecedented in scope, a crisis that's going to bring political, economic, and religious institutions to their knees, freeing humanity from the grip that these institutions have had over progress.
Yeah, for more than a millennium.
Yeah, the millennium. And that's what's going to happen. So Bucky said that. And that's what I believe is going to happen. I don't believe that human beings have within themselves their wherewithal to change direction in the right way right now. What they've got left is there exists the wherewithal to save their motherfucking asses from what's going to happen. And even then, they're not even there. They thinking that maybe their 401ks or this is going to do it. It's not that. It's not that at all. As Bucky said, the choice of humanity to exist as a species in the universe is not going to be answered with an economic right choice or the political right choice or the religious right choice. The Mormons aren't going to come out smelling sweet at the end, as South Park jokingly said, and neither are the Catholics, and neither are the Southern Baptists, and neither is that snake oil salesman. The choice, Bucky said, is going to be made in everybody's heart, and they get to choose. And Bucky said the choice is this: is the happiness and well-being of your fellow man as important? Is that happiness as important to you as your happiness? And if you answer it no, that their unhappiness may be required for your happiness, you're going to go, that's it.
Yeah, most people in the United States aren't going to say yes to that.
No. You know,
because they're up here.
They're up here. That's right.
They're not going to willingly choose. Like you said, nobody willingly chooses to get off the couch.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the thing that people in a crisis will change. They will change. And even though most people would not make that choice now, when a cataclysm happens, some people will come to the aid of their neighbors that they never would have helped before. All right? Some people will, and some people won't. Mm-hmm. When I wrote my book, Document of the Mothership, I ended it with the title of a song from Bonnie Raitt. It was called, Are You Ready for the Thing Called Love? Mm-hmm. And what I told Martha is, most people aren't. And it's not a judgment on them. It may seem like a judgment, but it isn't. Because the ability to love at that level depends on how much you've learned. You don't and cannot expect a person who has not had the requisite experience to make those kind of choices. But some have. Some have had a lot of chances, and they're going to go down with the ship. They're going to burn as they watch it burn. They don't care. They don't care about anybody except themselves. And that's the choice in front of us. When I gave that talk at the temple, the last person I quoted was Zoser. All right. And this is somebody that I know people will go, what the is this shit? Zoser, an Egyptian pharaoh that supposedly gave a message to us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And Zoser, yeah. And you know what? And, David, this is why I was really curious, because you're one of the few people that I've showed that clip to so far. Okay.
Yep.
And because and what I was curious about today was what your reaction was to that talk. And the fact that you had that reaction and you found that clip to be critical, all right, critical, gives me hope about where we're headed. Because the truth is, that's the only thing. I'm a spiritualist, so I believe life is eternal. I really do. I don't think this ends when you die. Let me tell you something about that. Yeah, if you go up and look at near-death experiences, they're really stunning. Mm-hmm. What people say, they almost all of them say the same things. What happens when they die? It isn't like, hey, where am I?
Yeah, and none of them wanted to come back to this life.
Yeah, they didn't want to come back here. And here, we don't want to leave. And I've known for eons, David, most people don't want to die, not because their life has been so good.
Because it's all they know.
Don't. That's all they know. And they think that when this is over, there's nothing. Well, let me tell you the first in-person NDE I ever heard. And it took place at Marshall's Positive Deviant Network in 2005. All right? The same year that Hoyt told me that people will be seeking me out. Marshall put together this group of people, and that's where I met John Body, the guy who gave talks to the Fed. This is a very interesting group of people. And we met 4 times a year.
That's why you were playing Pong, and the guy yelled at you.
Yeah. No. That was at Bucky's Marshall's event in 1981. And Bucky was talking in the other room. Yeah, that was before. All right. Shows how much Marshall likes me. Well, he didn't know I had done that. Yeah. But I've done other stuff. But anyway, this is 2005. The point I was making was, there we are, around 6 years standing of us, and Marshall has these speakers set up to present. We're sharing who we were with the group. That's why 2 years later, I shared my paper with the group. There was a lot of rich people in that room. The guy whose home insurance went from 5 to 45, he was so mad at what I said there when I predicted the collapse. He was enraged. He said, give me some hope. And you know what? He started buying $10,000 worth of gold a month after that. That was 2007.
That was a lot of gold.
That was a lot of gold back then.
Because that was probably about $500 an ounce?
It was 6 1/4. 6 1/4.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, what happens is we're in this meeting and one guy gets up, all right? And this guy was rich. He was one of these, Marshall had assembled a very interesting group of people, all right? And some of them had money, some didn't. Most of them had money. Most of them had done these things, they had a lot of money. And this guy was one of them. They own a huge amount of real estate franchises all over the country. And he and his partner, he was the slick out front boy, and his partner was the nuts and bolts numbers guy. All right. And they've been friends since they were kids. And this guy's talking, John, and he says, my partner here, he said that he doesn't believe in God. And I do. All right. And his number guy is a heart, nuts and bolts kind of guy. Doesn't believe in that shit. Right. And so he said, I would ask him, what's it going to take? And his partner goes, it's going to take what it's going to take. Well, John goes, he said, I now want him to tell you what happened to him.
He got his wish.
So we're sitting there, And this other guy goes up in front of us, and he's the kind of guy who's not used to public speaking. And he could tell. He said the first thing he said, he looked at, he said, he was nervous, and he said, "Could you give me a hand?" He wanted us to boost him up. He was that nervous talking about for the people. And we did. To me, wow, this guy's authentic. And what he said was that he and John had just finished doing an IPO with Coca-Cola. Okay. For Indian motorcycles. All right. They had put it together. Coca-Cola had funded it, and they launched the IPO, the stock offering. Boom. Huge success. Millions made. Everybody's happy. All right. And he said this was his 60th birthday party. And they're having it at a big place in Atlanta, Coca-Cola's headquarters, for him. And he said he gets out of the limo and he has a massive heart attack. But he doesn't know it. All he remembers is getting out of the limo. All right. And the next thing he said, he was like in this place and he saw the tunnel of light that some people experience at death. And he's walking through this tunnel and he hears a voice. And the voice says, "Laddie, take my hand." And it was his grandfather's voice.
Wow.
And he reaches up his hand and he looks at his hand. His hand is the hand of a little boy. And his grandfather takes his hand. And his brother was dead, okay? He takes his hand and, blah, 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 okay? And they're walking. And he feels no fear at all. In fact, he feels no fear at all. And his grandfather's talking to him. And his grandfather says, "Listen, Laddie, this isn't your time. You're going to go back." He said, "But I want you to tell your father something when you get back there. Tell him I love him." The next thing this guy says, he opens his eyes and he's strapped into a gurney, being put into an ambulance. And everybody is staring at him and crying. They think he's dead. And in fact, he was. His heartbeat had stopped.
Yeah.
And he opens his eyes. He doesn't know it. He opens his eyes and everybody just has a cow. And he goes, "Where's Dad? I have a message for Dad." And his father comes over and he said, "I saw Grandpa. And he told me to tell you that he loves you." And he said his father broke down in tears. His father had never told him that in his whole life. You're Scots. Hold it tight to the vest. Play it hard. And that's what it was. So that was the first near-death experience that I knew about that close up. And it was told by a guy in front of us at a seminar that Marshall had put together at the PDN. PDN was a very interesting group of people.
Is he still alive today?
I don't know. I know his partner, John Azaroff, still is. I don't know if he is. We haven't been in contact. I haven't seen him. He was only there in that first year, 2007.
I'm just curious if he took advantage of the second chance.
I don't know. I know it changed him. You can't go through something like that without being changed. It does something. It does. We're all where we are. I mean, I think at the core of it, we're all the same. We're, like I said, that the words that came to me in prison. We are eternal lights passing through temporal darkness. We cannot be harmed. We are love itself. That may be as it is. We don't experience that. We're eternal lights passing through temporal darkness. All right. We experience life as being you and me, and we have problems, we have illnesses, there's life and death, and this is not an easy game here. But there's a reason for it. And my belief about life as it has been on this planet, David, is like we're in a lapidary. And I don't know if you know what a lapidary is. A lapidary is like, when you go to a paint store and you see that can being shaken with the base and the pigments in it to change the color of the base paint. A lapidary is like that, and rock hounds use them to perfect gems that they put into it. All right, they open up the top and they put in all these rough gems, and then they lock it down and they start shaking it. Well, over time, those gems, those rocks become gemstones because they're banging against each other. And what happens is the part that is the weaker part, the part that covering the gem, breaks off and falls away, becomes sand or dross. And all that's left is the gems that you put in there in their natural state. And now there they are. You can cut them later, but they are gems. They become gemstones. And life is difficult for that reason. Just like the words I heard saying that I needed adversity to learn what I needed to learn. I wasn't going to learn them sitting on a couch, as you put it. All right. I wasn't going to learn them sitting on that couch. And Bucky said that too. The biggest learning experience he came was when his daughter died and he had let her down and he became an alcoholic. And he just was spinning out. He was going to kill himself. And then he found himself, he was going to commit suicide. And he found himself raised in the air, surrounded by light. And he heard these words, 1927. He heard these words. This is not your life to give away, to destroy. Everything you think is true. And if you dedicate your life to the well-being of your fellow human beings, I will take care of you. And that's what Bucky did. He said that he went into silence, the void, didn't talk to anybody for almost 2 years. And that's when he became psychic. That's when he had visions. That's when he knew things were going to happen. And that's why he gave his money away. As he told Marshall, he said, the universe told me that. And he said, every year I give, every month I give everything away. And more comes in. I mean, he traveled around the world. He was loved. Everyone respected. He was Bucky Fuller. But very few people knew of that situation that transformed him, that made him go inside and give up this stuff that's so enticing to all of us. All of us. I mean, we see the wonderment here. Why can't we just have all the wonderment? Well, we are going to have that wonderment. But first, the universe is coming in and is going to save Mother Earth, the planet, which it created, and it's not going to allow it to be destroyed. And that's what's going to happen. And it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, well, I think that, how is a diamond made? From pressure, right? I mean, it's,
yeah.
Right? It's
otherwise,
Bucky, if you had asked him when he went off to party and he forgot to bring back the pendant for his daughter,
yeah,
he wouldn't have never believed in any of that on that day. And it only was through that incredible loss and incredible pain that it led him down that path that he probably would have never chosen.
Absolutely. I read Critical Path over and over and over again. And Marshall was the one who introduced me to it. He knew Bucky. He was the one who sponsored Bucky at that week-long event that Martha saw him in 1981 that I was playing Pong and they had to kick me out of because I was disturbing them. But after what happened was Marshall had been trying to get me to read Bucky for years. He knew him, right? And then finally, in fact, Martha and I were on our way. We were on the train from Paris to Venice, and we were going through the Dolomites, the Italian Alps, and it was gorgeous. And we had just finished reading Bucky's book called Grunch of Giants. Have you read that?
I have not. I've read portions. I've read portions of the book.
Okay. Well, Marshall told me about Grunch Giants, and he said, Darryl, you got to read it. And this is back, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. And so I go up on the web, I Google Grunch Giants, and it's out of print. And you can only buy them like for $200, copies like that. Okay. I'm not going to do it. So I tell Marshall, and he said, okay, he said, I'm going to send you Bucky's signed copy of his book proof to me. Proofs are what you send the publisher, and then they send it back to you for your okay. And Bucky had autographed the proof of the book and given it to Marshall. And Marshall says, I'm going to send you my copy of the proof. And I said, don't. You know, I wouldn't risk putting that in the mail. So Marshall eventually found out that the Buckminster Fuller Institute had copies. Just wasn't on the web at that time. Now it is. All right. So I went and read it. Now, Critical Path was published the year before he died, 1982. Grunch of Giants was published the year after, and I think for a reason. Because he didn't want to attract the attention of the elites, of the boys who ran it. And it really takes them to town. And I asked, and Marshall, you know, just likes the upside. He didn't like all this stuff that Bucky was talking about, the crises and this, you know, suffering. And he said, I said, Marshall, what did you think when you read it? He said, I thought he lost his mind. To me, it showed me how sane he really was. I mean, my degree was in political science. I was into power. I understood power politics. I understood why we were in Vietnam. I understood the deep state. Deep state is not a right-wing idea, brother. Deep state, the term was coined by Peter Dale Johnson, I think. Peter Dale Johnson. He's a professor he was a professor at UC Berkeley. And the deep state, he termed, those are the boys who put the war in motion. And this was basically the Republican power structure, the military industrial complex. All right. Had nothing to do with what we call deep state now, the nuts going on. Deep state. You know, that bullshit. Anyway, so what happens is that Bucky publishes this book, and it's so stunning. And he published it after his death, so no one would read it. I mean, while he was alive. And I finally got turned, and I understood who Bucky was. And I said in that talk, is because Marshall had me read a selection from Critical Path, where Bucky talked about, he was a visionary. He saw things, he knew things. He was psychic, what we call psychic. And so he made these predictions. And when I read that Bucky made sure that his predictions were at least 50 years in the future, so nobody would believe him. Nobody would believe him. And then he said, Bucky said, I got to say what I wanted to say. And they had all the newspaper people follow me around, and they would just think me I'm a nut, that I was a nut. But he said I was deep, you know, he meant everything he said. In fact, in that book, Critical Path, I read a passage at the talk, page 271. Bucky died in 1982. And so he must have written Critical Path 1980, around then. And he said, this new world is coming. A better world is coming. However, there may come a time when a group of activist patriots, and he put that in quotes like fuck you, activist patriots, would take up arms and start another Nazi movement to reimpose the quote good old days. Now, we got that now. You know, 5 years ago, you wouldn't have believed it, David. I wouldn't believe it. But there they were, marching around, blood and soil, blood and soil. And now they're out of the woodworks. Proudly. They got run of that White House. Proudly. Nazis. Good. There's good people on both sides. Good. Fine. And Bucky saw this. But Bucky not only saw this, he saw there was going to be a crisis that was going to be so deep. It was going to bring humanity to its knees, destroy all the institutions that we are familiar with, churches, businesses, political parties. And in the rubble that comes out of it, out of the vulture is going to become a new and better world. That's just what it is. I mean, in 2020, Mark Maron, he's that comedian. I saw a stand-up routine he did right before COVID hit. Before COVID, this was in January 2020. COVID hit our awareness in February. By March, it was on. By April, they were shutting down economies because they didn't want it to spread.
Yeah.
And in January, there's Mark Maron. This is before we know. And he's in LA and he's doing a comedy routine. And he's talking about the world that we know. To a bunch of people who came there to laugh. And he turns to him, David, and he goes, "What's it going to take? What's it going to take?" And I told Martha, everybody in that motherfucking room knew what he was talking about. They knew he was saying, what's it going to take for humanity to get its act together? What's it going to take for us to change in a profound way so a world and we treat each other is different than it is now? What's it going to take? And Mark Maron didn't give an answer, but he asked a question. And everybody knew what the question was. Nobody had the answer. My belief, David, is that answer Bucky had. It was going to be an unprecedented crisis, the forward of which he called twilight of the world's power structures. A crisis unprecedented in scope and magnitude that would transform humanity from its present warring, competitive, differences-based reality to an interdependent, inharmonious whole. It's out of our hands. It's out of mine. It's out of yours. As Bucky said, this is class one. The universe is moving. We're class two. Our only choice is whether we're going to go with it or stay in the old thing. Keep the old world. Fight it. And some are fighting it. That's where you have this huge reaction around the world. What's happening in the United States is not just happening in the United States. Happening in Brazil with Bolsonaro. Happening all around, the reaction of change. Reaction. Now, I'm not saying the left had the answer. They don't have the answers. But they were headed in a direction that the right wasn't headed in. And that direction had heart. I majored in political science. Okay? I am plugged in to power. Before I graduated from the University of California, Davis, I was head of the chairman for Students for Political and Social Action, the local radical group on campus at UC Davis in 1965. When they had all the student unrest, they formed a committee at Davis to try and deal with the tumult that was happening in the 60s. And I was a student representative on that committee. That's how intensely involved I was. 2 years later, I'm living in Haight-Ashbury. Grateful Dead, Country Joe, all that. Hippies, peace, love. And time came for the election. And you know what? I knew nobody liked the hippies. Nobody was going to let us have the world we wanted. No one. And I knew the ones who hated us the most were the Republicans. And I knew the Democrats were going to be of no value when push came to shove. So I decided, fuck it. I'm not going to vote. Because to vote, I felt powerless. I had no say in this, and what I voted wasn't going to change a damn thing. So that was 1966. I was 21. I could have voted. This last year, 2024, I voted for a president. I registered for a president for the first time. And I voted for Kamala Harris. And not because I believe that Kamala had the answers to the economic situation that we're in. The Democrats were farther away from the solution than the Republicans. The Republicans were looking for a solution because it was going to preserve their wealth and power. Democrats were living off the crumbs off the table. They didn't know what to do about it. And I voted for Kamala, not because they had the answers, but because she had heart. And I knew when this thing collapsed, I'd rather have somebody with heart at the helm than some selfish asshole like we've got today.
Well, Darryl, it's yeah, 2025 definitely is not going as most people thought it was going to go.
No, that
Yeah,
is absolutely true,
yep,
including me.
yep. And a lot of the people who voted for Trump, like you alluded to at the beginning, did so because they were looking for a bull in a china shop, I think, to come
Yeah,
in,
they knew.
and
Fix it.
they bought into the words, like you said, they bought into the promises. And the problem is this is really the disappointing part, is if you voted for Trump, or even if you didn't vote for Trump, the bottom line is if somebody has a platform that they say they're going to go and then they don't do it, and then their constituency is making excuses as to why they're not doing it, that's the wrong answer.
David, it's true. But to me, we're living in history, and history is huge. And history is not just a series of events that we say this changed, that changed. History is composed of the consciousness of those in it. All right, that was Ludwig von Mises' great contribution to economics. That economics is not Dryden's sense. He called it, his book that he wrote about where he predicted the collapse that we're having now is called Human Action. He said human choices in the marketplace determine economics. It's not some dried AI-driven, widget thing that makes this happen. No,
Yeah.
it's
Human
humanity.
emotions. Yeah,
It's
human emotions.
We are here, and we're here for a reason. I mean, these are words that sort of came. I read these words at the end of my talk. Did you hear that poem that I read there? That there was
Yeah. That's in the audio clip.
That's
in
another
the
clip.
audio clip.
Okay, before I want to see if I can.
Yeah, but
find
please
it.
read. But I just want to say, I don't care
Yeah.
if it's Biden, Harris, Trump, whoever. This is what we have to do. Is we as the people, we have to hold these people accountable, Darryl. All of them.
Well, and I think it's sort of too late for that because they're in there.
Oh,
and
I know that. I know that.
and it's like a suicide thing that they're on. And I think we have to stand aside. And that's why I wanted to end. These words came to me in early 2025. And I think I just want to end with this.
Okay.
The weather's going crazy. People are crazy too. Something's going on. What we gonna do? Fears come out of hiding. Anger's just behind. People with guns everywhere. The president's lost his mind. Time to trust. Time to know. Something's going on. It's time to grow. Time to trust. Time to know. Something's going on. It's time to grow. Wall Street's buying up houses. People living on loans. The rich are getting richer. The poor are getting boned. Cities filled with homeless, hoping drugs will kill the pain. No roof, no food, no bed. Greed's gone insane. Time to trust. Time to know. Something's going on. It's time to grow. Insurance is just gambling. Roll the dice, hope and pray. Maybe tomorrow or the next day will be better. Just can't say. The earth is getting hotter and still we're burning gas. Balloon payments getting bigger. Denial can't make this last. Time to trust. Time to know. Something's going on. It's time to grow. Love is still here waiting for us to find our heart. Instead of thinking AI can replace the holy art of trusting in the future and knowing what to do, of trusting again in life and love and knowing I am you. Time to trust, time to know something's going on. It's time to grow.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. I don't think, and I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. You can tell people they're on the Titanic, but they're not gonna believe you until the ship goes like this.
That's it. And you were right at the beginning of this because the thing is that I think the reason I got 120,000 hits on that video is that, and before I get 1 or 2 grand, 2,000, 3,000, not many, compared to this one, is that things are changing. People are gonna be forced off the couch. So
Okay, amigo.
well,
Well, I just want to say this. Thank you very much. And go ahead. You go.
David, before I want to say peace, I am heartened by your response. It gives me the faith that I know it's all going to turn out. Thanks.
Well, it's thank you very much. And I just want to, I'll just say to people, this is where you, like we talked about Bucky, he would have never chosen that path. You probably would have never chosen your path. You wouldn't have chosen those 10 years.
Not, yeah, I did 7 inside, 10 on paper.
Yep. And the bottom line is that's why people have to find it. There are words in the Bible that I find so powerful. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and always submit to him, and he will make your path straight.
Absolutely. There it is. So,
okay. Darryl, thank you very much, amigo. And I hope we get to chat again sometime soon.
Live long and prosper.